immigrant rights. Oh, so it's got filtered in here somehow. Interesting. All right. From the American Conservative, from Scott Greer. Where's the anti-war left? Demographics and technology have conspired to keep the streets clear of protesters. The world remains fixated on President Trump's war with Iran, with concerns rising over how it may harm the global economy and Middle Eastern stability. It's already killed 13 Americans and could kill far more. Yet, unlike past conflicts, there are no large-scale demonstrations against the war. The opposition party also remains rather muted about the conflict. Right-leaning podcasters and influencers seem to be driving more of the opposition towards the war than traditionally dovish parts of the left. The missing anti-war movement is a cause of concern. Rutgers professor Eric Blank bemoaned this missing coalition in an article for the liberal publication this week. Blank noted that, isn't this also the name of a fucking Nikkei character? Blanc noted that the war is unpopular with under 40% of America backing it. Why then has there been so little collective protest against the U.S.-Israel offensive, he asked, because everyone's either on gotcha games, sports betting apps, or TikTok. Nobody cares. The U.S. populace has become far more withdrawn from politics than from a decade or two ago. This article offers some unsatisfying explanations from claiming Americans feel powerless to Trump doing so many horrible things. It's hard to focus on a single issue. The article mostly amounts to cope. Okay, there are clear explanations for why Democrats seem relatively concerned with the matter and why there are no large-scale protests. One reason is that this war's direct impact on Americans has been limited so far, except at the gas station. There have been limited casualties, no call-ups of troops, and no drafts on the horizon. Prior to the Iraq war thing, we did have inactive ready reserve call-up for Iraq. So we were actually like dragging people back in, like saying, "All right, you're still on the list. Time to gear up, buddy. We're going in." Rising gas prices have been the only discernible effect on Americans' daily lives. Americans certainly do care about the conflict and are aware of it's happening, but like most foreign conflicts, it hasn't upended their lives. America has been able to get away with numerous interventions over the last decade or so by limiting the effects on domestic life. Libya, Syria, Ukraine, the 12-Day War, and Venezuela were all just fodder for the news. As long as Americans feel no real pain from military actions, the U.S. government can do what it pleases. The calculus changes when the cost can no longer be ignored. Public opinion soured on Iraq as the casualties mounted with little progress to show for it. True. Then that begs the question, like, how did we withstand such casualties during World War II? One, we probably had a more demographically homogenous and cohesive country, and sort of seen as defensive. Japan attacked us and put a giant black eye on our face. Potentially Germany and Japan could threaten the mainland. They had actually touched one of our territories, even though Hawaii wasn't a state at the time. Even the Germans did some things, like I think they were able to do some submarine attacks that fucked up New York Harbor at some point, and they even sent in agents at into the country, like 20 with like tons of counterfeit money, but they all got captured. So defensive war, more cohesive population. Even though we probably had a little bit more of a cohesive population compared to now in 2003 or like the 2000s when we started souring on Iraq, it definitely wasn't, seen more of a war of choice. In any case, it can be argued that the consequence-free war is now considered the norm for American interventions. The first Gulf War inspired mass protests before the planes even started bombing Baghdad due to the shot of Vietnam cast over America. That we kind of do look at the first Gulf War, Operation Desert Storm, as like a resounding success where we kicked off the Vietnam syndrome, and not much is like known about how there was a lot of actual initial resistance to actually intervening. 35 years later, we now think we can bomb foreign lands with minimal risk, because we kind of can. We usually have severe air superiority that we can bomb with impunity. The Iran war could create the costs that make Americans build an anti-war movement, but we're not there yet. The second reason why the left hasn't generated an anti-war movement is that it has other priorities. Trump's battle with Minneapolis generated more outrage than the Iran strikes. Democrats are united in denouncing the ICE raids and shootings, with many coming to revive the once discredited idea of abolishing the agency. Thousands of leftists took to the street to disrupt immigration enforcement and show their displeasure with Trump's policies. Hostility towards ICE raids has become a centerpiece in many Democrats' campaigns this. While the left was united in response to Trump's immigration policies, the Iran strikes caused division within its ranks. Some Democrats condemned the intervention in no uncertain terms. Others, such as Mark Kelly and Tom Suozzi, were either circumspect about the strikes or supportive of them. Unlike immigration, which seems to be a shared priority for the Democrats in the general election, the Iran war is a contested issue in the party's primaries. At least half a dozen progressives are challenging establishment-backed or moderate rivals over the Iran war, according to Reuters. Of course, plenty of people protested against the Iraq war when it was a contested issue among Democrats. The same is true for Gaza, but at the moment, the left cares more about other matters. All right, so immigration is affecting us. Ultimately, it's affecting Americans far more at home. We've had 2 people famously killed over it, whether you think those were justified or not. So Americans, and those were definitely headline news. People probably remember Alex Pretty and Renee Good's names over any of the guys who were killed so far in the Iran conflict. So things that happen at home get Americans riled up more. Important principle to remember. The third reason is that the young are no longer interested in street protests. Several publications have noted the lack of Zoomers at recent left-wing protests. Again, even I remember this when I was in Boulder, Colorado, which is probably a pretty left-wing hive. There was like some random protest that me and my mom were driving by. I'm looking at it and it's like all these middle-aged people or post-middle-aged people with graying hair with signs like saying honk if you hate Trump. And I'm like, oh my God, it's so geriatric. And like, I've been hearing about how like youngins are not showing up to the protests. And that was like my manifestation of it is, yeah, it is the boomers that the only ones getting out there. The people who are secure with their social security checks and retirement accounts who feel free to protest. Whereas Zoomers, they don't feel the need to get out and risk themselves in protests anymore. Most of the attendees at No Kings demonstration sported gray hair. Gen Z's absence can be explained by their relative lack of interest. Younger adults are less engaged with U.S. politics. In politics compared to older generations, and their preference for engaging in politics through social media rather than direct protest. One study found that of the young people engaged in politics, nearly 2/3 say that their involvement is mostly through digital means. Yeah, so people will rather tweet than actually show up to a protest because that takes some level of effort. And again, back during 2003 and the early aughts on the war, we didn't have mass adoption of smartphones. Not just cell phones, but smartphones where you can get all the entertainment that you need. So, something to say that smartphones are definitely sapping it out of people to actually go out and do things. So, go out and touch grass is what I'm saying. Social media shows widespread opposition to the Iran war. Young people may feel it makes more sense to like an Instagram post or repost an X meme to show their opinion than to take to the streets. Yes, young people have gotten involved in protests. The Palestinian protesters are one example, as are the school walkouts against ICE. But these are organized and directed by people with more of a direct connection to those issues. It's not hard to understand why a school with kids of illegal immigrants would protest against ICE, or why Palestinian students would organize a protest against Israel. Without that direct connection to an issue, people are less motivated to demonstrate. There might be a need for an anti-war movement to take to the streets. It's unlikely the war is going to get more popular over time. Pro-war Democrats losing their seats over Iran sends a stronger message than 10,000 people in Washington, D.C. Something to be said that protests are not as powerful as people would like them to believe. The same would be true if Republicans have disastrous midterms as a result of the conflict. The street movement model may be unnecessary in today's age. We increasingly live online. Over half the country gets a portion of its news from social media. If you want to get the public's attention, memes and short-form videos are now a better way to do it than chants and placards. One could argue there already is an anti-war movement, but it's not exclusively tied to the left, and it's not organizing marches. To find it, you just need to log into. The internet is not real life, but it's increasingly becoming real life. That's contradictory, but it's nonetheless true. All right, I should clip that into a video to just release.